but the attacker knows, right? They're actually after you. This is not a email that they're just mass mailing to a lot of folks. It's something personal, and they include information in the email that targets you and makes you trust it.
We're going to talk about scams a little bit more in depth. We talked about scams in one of our previous podcasts, and that was a big topic. That was something that a lot of people are experiencing and have interest in. So we're picking a lane on that, and we're going to talk a little bit about phishing. So phishing with a PH, not rod and reel. We're in Colorado. Right. A lot of people might have been like, "Oh, awesome, trout fishing." I'm totally into that.
Yeah, great. Totally different fishing.
We're talking about a different type of phishing. So what are we talking about here today, Travis?
We're talking about a type of social engineering attack that's used to steal personal information, often financial information, but it can just be username, password credentials. But the end goal here is to either take your money or to take control of a network so that you can either hold it ransom or perform some other malicious activity. But that's what we're talking about, right? People who are trying to steal private information from you using social engineering.
Gotcha. Okay. So now that we have the explanation of what phishing is, we know there's several different types of phishing. Yes. Let's jump into that. What types of phishing are there?
So the most common probably for everybody is the regular email phishing attempt that you get, where it's a fake email pretending to be maybe a shopping site that you use like Amazon, or maybe it looks like it's from Microsoft. And it says, hey, you're behind on your invoice, or there's a refund waiting for you, or something like that, where it's trying to tempt you into clicking on a link. That link takes you to a website, and that website wants you to type in your username and password. And you think, oh, I'm going to Amazon to get this refund or this credit or correct this billing error. Really what you're doing is you're giving them your Amazon credentials, or maybe, this happens a lot for corporations. You think you're trying to log in your Microsoft 365, and then you're actually giving up your email credentials to this criminal, who then is going to use those to log into your account and do all sorts of terrible things. So that's the most common type. But in addition to that, there's things like spear phishing. People may have heard of that. Spear phishing is the idea being that regular phishing is more of you're casting a broad net, whereas spear phishing is targeted, right? Who they know who they're attacking. You don't know who you're attacking. Hopefully you're not phishing, but the attacker knows, right? They're actually after you, and this is not a email that they're just mass mailing to a lot of folks. It's something personal, and spear phishing is really effective because they include information in the email that targets you and makes you trust it more than if it was just a generic broad stroke of an email. In addition to spear phishing, there's what we call whaling. Whaling is the same thing as spear phishing, but it's specifically targeting whales, if you will, right? The CEO of a company, the CFO, any C-level executive, somebody who has a lot of money or a lot of access within an organization. So that's called whaling. It's essentially the same thing, though, as spear phishing. In addition to that, there's phishing attempts that come through phone calls. They call it vishing. You can kind of see a pattern here, right? There's also search engine phishing, where my parents at one point almost fell prey to this. They were looking for Microsoft support, and they typed in Microsoft support, and they got a website that was like, oh yeah, here, we do Microsoft support, and they're trying to lure you in that way. And it was actually a website that's purpose was to steal money from them. So there's a lot of different types of attacks out there. Most of them are going to happen on email. There's also phone calls, right? That's the vishing. That's the voice attacks, where somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I'm from the IRS, and I need to confirm some stuff because there's something wrong, with our information regarding you, and you're going to owe a lot of money." Something like that. So those phone call attempts that you get, those are vishing.
So, there's a lot there. That's some tongue twisters. Phishing, fishing, sword fishing,
vishing,
whaling,
smishing. Yeah.
Dishing. There's also
I didn't make
dishing.
up the names. I apologize.
Yeah,
Dishing.
there's dishing. That's
Dishing
that's where someone gets you to do their dishes for them, and you didn't know you were going to do it. They invite you over to eat a meal, and it's really because they want you to do their dishes for them.
But now you have to clean everything up.
Yeah. So, so all jokes aside, this is something that, as we talked about in the podcast about scammers, it's something that it's not that you're a foolish person. You don't fall for this just because you're a foolish person. Anyone can fall for this. No. But there are certain things that we can do to try to protect ourselves and make sure that we're not falling for this. What are some of those things that we might want to look out for, or things that we might want to do to protect ourselves?
Sure. So I'll try to go through them kind of in the order that I think they are in terms of importance. So the first thing is obviously get some good training. Get good training for you and your staff so that they are more skeptical and sort of aware of what's out there. Your information technology team, your provider, or your internal IT folks should be able to put that together for you and just give a brief class and show some examples of what phishing emails look like. If your team doesn't have that together, there are different third-party vendors out there you can work with that have some training that can help you. But start with that. The other thing that I would say right after that is start implementing some phishing simulation. In other words, start actually proactively sending phishing emails to your staff to see who falls for them. So there's KnowBe4 is a really well-known vendor that does this. WebRoot also has a software for this. We use WebRoot personally. It's the one that we like to use. And it works great. So set up these phishing campaigns, proactively send these emails to your users, see who clicks on them. Not, again, to name and shame these folks or to put them on the spot, but to identify your risks. You know, in our organization, we have people who are technical and people who are not technical, because it's even though we're an IT company, we have folks who are doing administrative tasks that may not be as keenly aware of these types of attacks as our technicians are. So it's great to get everybody together, train them all together, and then deploy these, these simulated attacks in your own environment to find out who needs additional training and additional coaching. So start with that. After you get that established, because I would get that started immediately, there are technical steps you can take. You can improve your spam filtration. If you're using Microsoft 365, you can upgrade your license with them from a standard license to a business or the premium, license. And that gets you the Microsoft Defender component, which is a little bit of advanced, used to be called advanced threat protection for your email. You can also make sure that you're implementing things like SPF, DMARC, DKIM. I know that doesn't mean much to anybody, but if you're trying to look for suggestions for your own IT staff, ask them about, do we have DMARC, DKIM set up, SPF set up correctly in our email environment. There's another service you should look at. Okay. Some sort of DNS firewalling service. So Cisco Umbrella is probably the best known service out there. It's pretty big. It's been around for a long time. There's another one called DNS Filter. We really like DNS Filter. It's another vendor that we work with. These services, what they do two different things essentially. They do more than that, but there's two basic things, right? One is they do offer things like content filtering, where you can say, hey, I don't want certain types of content to be viewed at the office. But with regards to phishing, what they'll do is if you click on a link that's a malicious link in an email, and the filter knows that it's a malicious link, and usually it does, it'll block it, and it'll stop you from being able to go there and then fill that information out. The other thing, and actually this does need to go higher up on the list, and if you've watched any of these videos, I almost say this word in every single video.
Multi-factor authentication, MFA.
Yeah, turn it on. Turn it on. I know you're worried it's an inconvenience. Here's what a big problem that people have. They're really concerned, like, well, my employees, they don't have company phones. Can I do this? Can I require them to do this? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Here's how you do it. You put it in your handbook that it's a requirement to use email within your organization. You have to have multi-factor authentication enabled. You have to. Now, if the person doesn't want to install the multi-factor app on their phone, usually SMS is an option. So it's not our preferred option, but you can enable it so they just get text messages. What if the employee doesn't have a cell phone? Well, highly unlikely. But in the case that they don't, there's $20 phones out there you can just get text messaging plans on, and you can say, here's your $20 phone, and you can work out a deal with them, and they just have it. It's a requirement to keep it on them just to get that second factor SMS. But these are the things you've got to do to protect yourself.
So a lot of information of things that people can do, practical steps that you outlined there, Travis. And that's what we always want to do. We always want to offer some guidance, offer some practical steps that people can take to help protect themselves. And again, this is broad. There's so many different types of scams.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about more of this on our podcast. But to summarize everything, as we always do, let's keep IT simple. In 30 seconds or less, Travis, what is a phishing attack?
It's a type of social engineering that's used to take your personal or financial information from you. And it comes often in the form of email or phone calls and sometimes on websites. And it's out there and it's happening to everybody. So you should look out for it. Oh, hey, looks like you made it this far. Please hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell thing. Thanks.